Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses. I think it's self-evident that Canada needs trade and that we should be, and I would suggest can be, the supplier of choice. And in particular, I look at the three gentlemen here when it comes to our agricultural sector. And yet, it seems to be that when it comes to our place, we don't seem to be growing as fast as certainly we could be. And I would suggest, and I would ask the question, the reason why I ask this question is because it's important when this committee compiles a report. So my question to the three gentlemen here at the end of the table is the method to which we transport our goods primarily to Asia would be what? If I could just go down the table, starting with Mr. Harvey, then Mr. Carey, and then Mr. Hines.
I mean, after leaving Canada by ship?
Mr. Carey?
Rail to port.
Mr. Hines.
And for soybeans, we're transporting in containers as well as transporting in bulk. We use a lot of containers, approximately 40,000 every year to export our soybeans.
And those would primarily go through?
Port of Montreal, Port of Halifax, Port of Prince Rupert, and Port of Vancouver.
Okay. So when it comes to specifically the Indo-Pacific, we have one major port, and although I know that there's a lot of conversations that, in fact, that I've had with some of your organizations about expanding that, but I'm looking at a copy the World Bank had S&P do a report on port efficiencies. And I know my Liberal colleagues like to talk about S&P a lot, so I hope they'll note this in particular. And in the context of this report, the Port of Vancouver ranks, you can see it highlighted there, 347 out of 348 when it comes to port efficiency. So to the witnesses here at the end of the table, is that concerning in terms of Canada's potential when we are ranked so low when it comes to efficiencies of such a critical part of Canada's transportation infrastructure, which is essential to making sure that your members, those involved with your organizations, and the many producers that you all represent are able to get their products to market? We'll start with Mr. Harvey, and we'll keep it fairly short. But
working more on ports on a daily basis than me.
Okay, Mr. Carey.
Absolutely. I think Canada needs to get back in the business of nation building. We see if capacity is needed in the United States at Long Beach, they move heaven and earth regardless of party in power at the time. 7 out of 10 tons of grains grown in the prairies by farmers and many of your constituents, it goes through the Port of Vancouver still. We have one bridge that gets in the Port of Vancouver. We have one tunnel. And I know discussions with the city of Burnaby are 5 years now into improving some of the basic grade issues around railway passing. So it is a concern that is our gateway to economic prosperity in Asia.
And I appreciate that. And move heaven and earth, I think, is a key phrase there, because you're absolutely right. We need to be a country that builds and actually gets things done. And it's regrettable that over the last 9 years or so that has not been the case. And just a shout out to my father, who's actually on the tractor right now. He said he's got a little over 1,000 acres of canola left to seed before we moved oats. So, Mr. Hines, you wanted to answer that.
Yes, thank you. So we export our soybeans in containers in bulk shipments. And to build on what my colleague said, predictability and reliability and cost competitiveness for Canadian shippers is paramount to our competitiveness. So in the soybean industry, we compete head-to-head with our American counterparts. And so when they have better service, when they have better rates, all of which comes from infrastructure as well as thinking about competition of the 3 global alliances that control the container market, for example. These are actions taken by government that have real impact on the shippers and our competitiveness that allows us to bring value here to Canada.
So when it comes to competitiveness, I'm glad you brought that up, because Canada, of course, pays a carbon tax, and while so that has an in particular and disproportionate effect on the transportation sector, specifically rail, which you all mentioned that it's important for commodities to get from the farm, which is generally by truck, to a inland port, which would then go on rail to a major port, and then from the port to wherever in the world. The carbon tax. Does that have an impact on Canada's competitiveness to be able to get our products to market? I'll start with Mr. Hines, then Mr. Carey, and then Mr. Harvey. Go ahead.
I think Mr. Carey is best placed to speak to this.
Sure, Mr. Carey.
It does. My organization has been a proponent of Bill C-234 since its inception. That would alleviate the carbon pricing on a farm. However, every time the price of carbon goes up, whether that's rail, whether that's inputs, custom haul trucking, that all gets passed down to the farmer in many ways. So farmers are saying that their major, for canola, we have 60% of the world trade is Canada, but Australia is our largest competitor. They're much closer to markets and they do not have a carbon tax. So anything that takes money out of the farmers' pockets to reinvest in their operations does impact our ability to compete with places like the United States, Australia, and South America.
And I appreciate that, and I hope my Liberal colleagues are watching, because quite often they say, oh, well, because you get money back, therefore everything's a wash, but it's that impact that it has on competitiveness that is very significant. And 234 does address, at least in its original form, a key part of that. But you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that it's so much more than that in terms of the impact on the sector as a whole. Am I correct in that?
Yes, 234 is only for on-farm activities related to natural gas and propane use. However, all the costs that we all see as normal Canadians, as well as transportation.
And sorry to interrupt, just in my last 10 seconds, all of you, if you could quick answer, can Canada grow its place in the world when it comes to agricultural exports? Yes or no? Mr. Hines, Mr. Carey, and Mr. Harvey.
Absolutely.
100%. Yes.
Thank you.